My Lords, we now come to the group beginning with Amendment 48, Clause 5, Amendment 48. Lord Moylan.
My Lords, I'm speaking in this group to four amendments in my name, 48, 52, 53 and 57. And I will come in a moment, if I may, to saying exactly what it is they do, but I would like to make some preliminary remarks, and they do arise from something that my noble friend Lady Mackintosh of Pickering said earlier, but I don't think they've been sufficiently discussed. This is the famous metaphysical bit that the Minister has been worried about. I hope to get through this while skirting Descartes, or anybody difficult or foreign for that matter. The difficulty we have here is what we're asked to do is to assess to what extent, in a meaningful way, we can think that animals can feel pain. And that requires us just to think a little bit about what pain is and what feeling is. And Lady Mackintosh, the noble Lady Mackintosh, brought up the question of insects as an example of this, but it relates to other creatures as well. Pain itself, of course, is not just an interior experience. It is, to some extent, a social concept. Pain is an abnormality, but we learn from others that it's an abnormality that is expressive of something that requires a response. So we learn as children, don't put your hands on the coal. If you do put your hands on the coal, that's what we call pain. Learn not to do it again. There is a social element to it, which it's not by any means clear can be translated to animal experience. And this is the problem with operating on a non-behavioral sort of scientific basis. We also have coping strategies for dealing with pain. We humans have coping strategies. Those of us who personally, when I know I'm going to have an injection in my arm, I always make sure I look the other way. That's a very small example of a coping strategy. And that illustrates another thing about human experience of pain, which is that very often it's worse in anticipation than in the experience itself. Now, all of this is tied up with what we understand by pain. For a human, it is not simply a neurological experience that can be tracked by chemicals and electrons. It has all those aspects to it. It's very difficult to know how one can map that across to the bulk of animals. It is easiest to do so, of course, in the case of mammals, because there we have a closer link with ourselves in terms of DNA composition and so forth. But to map it to fish and birds is extremely difficult. And indeed, it is scientifically quite challenging to understand how the very limited neural capacity or brain capacity of fish and birds could indeed accommodate that range of complex experiences of pain, which are characteristic of humans and perhaps indeed of the primates and other higher mammals. There's also, in a similar question, is what it is to feel something. In ordinary English, feel, of course, has two aspects. I can feel a table, that's a physical sensation, but I can also feel love and disdain and other sort of emotions. And nobody doubts at all that the vertebrates we're discussing here can feel in the former sense. But again, simply as a matter of their neural and their brain capacity, the notion that they can feel love, affection, fear, complex emotions like that is a very, very challenging one, that they even have that ability. So we really do need to understand that sort of background before we do what this bill does, which is to cast an extremely wide net. So it includes all vertebrates, but it goes beyond that. It actually gives the Secretary of State this power, which I think is completely unprecedented, to decide that any invertebrate, including the insects referred to by the Lady Mackintosh of Pickering, are in fact sentient. That is the power that is given to him, which, as I say, is almost incredible. So if I turn then to the detail of my amendments, what they are seeking to do here, first of all, and they're cutting the thing in different ways. Number 48 suggests leave out vertebrates and limit the scope of the bill to mammals. Now, what this would do is it would make it very much easier for the public, and indeed for many members of this committee and your Lordship's House, to accept this bill. It could be regarded as a first stage. There would be nothing to prevent the government subsequently coming back and saying, well, having won over opinion on the question of mammals, we could now extend it to the broader class of vertebrates. Number 52 explicitly invites the removal of fish. It's playing the same tune. And number 53, the removal of birds. They're all different ways of coming at the same thing. Number 57 is slightly different, because that simply, I still can't get over my outrage at the sense that Parliament is proposing to give the Secretary of State the power to designate any vertebrate as sentient. So here, simply for the sake of modesty and respectability, what this amendment does is limit that power to cephalopods and decapod crustaceans, simply because one knows from conversation and debate that that is the category of animals most likely to come within scope of this unprecedented power, which nonetheless should, in my view, be limited. So that is the purpose of these amendments, and it's very important, I think, that we explore them, because I don't accept that it is very easy to map notions of feeling and pain onto these classes. If I could briefly refer to...
My Lord's division in the Chamber, the committee stands